I want to go into a little adjunct onto the last video that I posted about Amelia Earhart and her disappearance, and that maybe she was taken by the Japanese in 1937. Um, there's some conjecture that FDR knew that the Japanese took her, but basically made no big deal about it and just let it slide. There's some conjecture on that, but this is where I'm going to point out some other things that a lot of people may or may not know. But during the time in the late 30s, actually FDR was getting fairly unpopular at that time, and it wasn't until World War II broke out that his popularity rose again. But one of his biggest adversaries was Charles Lindbergh, the famous aviator, who was also very, very good friends with Amelia Earhart. Now, during the time, and I put these two pictures side by side, actually, Amelia Earhart used to be known as Lady Lindy. Lady Lindy, because she looked like a female, her actual face looked like a female version of Charles Lindbergh. Now, politically, Charles Lindbergh and FDR were at total opposite ends. Now, I don't really have any information on Amelia Earhart's politicizing, but she was a very outspoken woman. I do know that. And there may be some other things in there that possibly she was critical of FDR. But it's not too far of a stretch of an imagination, because she was very, very good friends with Charles Lindbergh, and if she disagreed with him greatly, I don't see how she would be that good of friends. At the same time, Charles Lindbergh was like at total odds with FDR. Charles Lindbergh actually was the congressman that was highly critical of the Federal Reserve, the banking establishment, and a lot of things that were going on that brought about the Great Depression, also the World War One, because basically the United States was tricked into World War One. Charles Lindbergh was actually considered a isolationist, and there's actually books written on it about, if you look here, Lindbergh versus Roosevelt, the rivalry that divided America, and they think, was he actually a target of a personal vendetta by President Roosevelt. But considering that Earhart and Lindbergh were such good friends, they might have shared a lot of the same ideology. And it almost makes me think there's a little bit more to this than if you dig deep down than it is on the surface. So Lindbergh possibly, had the same philosophy as, Earhart, and Lindbergh might have had the same type of philosophy as the direction of America, isolationism, the Federal Reserve, and that type of thing. So considering that she was such good friends with Lindbergh, and also she was known as Lady Lindy because she bared such a good resemblance to him, like the female version of him, that I almost suspect that if FDR was like at odds hatred for Lindbergh, the same might have been felt for Amelia Earhart. You don't know. And I don't have any of her political leanings here, but somehow I think her political leanings are probably far more in line with Charles Lindbergh, considering they were such good friends. So, that could be another impetus why she was never really, found, or the Japanese were, in other words, if they had information that FDR had this information early on that Amelia Earhart was taken by the Japanese, or maybe was taken by the Japanese, he could have acted and put pressure on him to give him up. But, he probably played stupid, and that's my suspicion. So, it's another angle that you're not going to hear anywhere except from me, maybe, because, Charles, it was a fact, though. Back in 1940, when they had Wendell Willkie, I think it was, ran against FDR in 1940, that guy was a horrible Republican. Basically, he was a socialist. They really didn't have anybody they could put up against him, and one of the guys they could have put up against him was Charles Lindbergh. FDR, and they hated each other. Basically, they were on total odds with each other. Now, I know Lindbergh's accused of being a Nazi sympathizer and all this stuff. I don't think he is, but It's almost like when the extreme socialistic left starts losing an argument, they call the other side a Nazi sympathizer. I am definitely not a Nazi sympathizer in any way, shape, or form. But it's almost like anytime the left starts losing an argument, they start calling this the guy that's for laissez-faire capitalism and against the Federal Reserve a Nazi sympathizer, and that's exactly what Charles Lindbergh was. But considering that Lady Lindy, otherwise known as Amelia Earhart, was such good friends with Charles Lindbergh, and they got along so well, and it's almost like a lot of people in the public got almost mistake them as being related to each other or something, really, because they looked so similar. But they were actually very, very good friends. So, I just can't see very, very good friends being at, it would almost put her in a camp that somebody being against FDR. And that is probably a pretty good possibility. So, looking at, I could never really pull out every single dot every single I or cross every T on this deal. But, if there's something to this, it looks like there is. It's legit. It looks like it's legit. It looks like FDR just let her, be taken by the Japanese and, did nothing about it and did nothing to follow up on it. This guy, I always read FDR as a real pompous ass, and it's amazing that the American public elected this guy 4 times. But considering that the Republicans never put anybody up against him that was worth a damn, that's probably how we got elected, and that's probably what happens with a lot of elections. Like Obama, maybe people could have been bitching about Obama, but then look who they put up against him, right? I mean, either one you pick is screwed up, and that's the deal that was happening back in the 1930s. Now, somebody like Charles Lindbergh would have been a fantastic candidate, and they didn't do that. They didn't do that. But considering Lindbergh was highly, there was like major animosity there between FDR and Lindbergh. Lindbergh was basically a champion of the people. He was not a Nazi sympathizer, man. That's I hate when they bring that crap out. Every time you get a champion that's for the Bill of Rights or anti big established government or anti Federal Reserve or big banks, that means he's a Nazi. It's like ridiculous. They always pull out that stupid argument. But considering that they were such good friends, I think her political leanings were probably right in line with his, which would have put her as a major enemy of FDR. So it's conjecture. Yes, it is conjecture. But I'm going to tell you this, man. There's a reason I've been around for certain things, and my conjectures are usually pretty good. They're pretty good, but take it for what it's worth, because this speculative argument is not going to get you 1 red cent. It's just a story of interest, and it may very well be the case, but it does tell you a lot about human nature, man. And we got a lot of spiteful, freaking people up in the top of the politics. They will do stuff like this. They will do this type of stuff, and they'll do it today too.